this weekend, I'm actually recording episode number 200. So it's a big milestone. The way that people buy in the last 4 or 5 years has completely changed. People buy on emotion, they justify with that logic, and then they justify the logic with another emotion. The house doesn't write the check. People write the check. People will pay more for what they want than what they need. Listen to understand, don't listen to respond. 2 reasons people take action. One is they're moving away from pain. The other is they're moving towards pleasure.
How do you typically handle, I want to think about it. How do you overcome that objection?
We've done hundreds of these projects in the area. We attract who we are. Become who you want to attract.
When you were asking with this, I'm feeling a bit nervous.
Because we know there's only 4 sales we have to make in a house. Do you think we'd have 1,082 Google reviews at a 4.9 star rating from people in your area, in your own neighborhood, if we were out here taking advantage of people with price or price gouging? If it wasn't a fair price, even if it's $500 or $50,000, it doesn't matter. It's how fake does that sound?
Welcome to the HVAC Hotshots, the podcast where HVAC entrepreneurs like you learn to dominate your market and build multi-million-dollar empires. Every week, we bring you proven strategies, expert insights, and inspiring stories from industry leaders who have been in the trenches and come out on top. Whether you are just starting out or scaling up, this is your go-to resource to ignite your business goal. So buckle up, hotshot. It's time to turn up the heat and make your HVAC dreams a reality. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the HVAC Hotshots. Today, I've got another fantastic guest with me who has immense knowledge about the sales and stuff like that. He has been into HVAC and it's been 19 years already. And yeah, in this podcast, we'll try to soak in all of his knowledge within the next 30, 45, 50 minutes. So yeah, welcome Sam. How are you doing today?
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It is an honor to be on your show today. It's a good day, man. It's always it's a great day to, great day to be live.
Yeah. To start, could you share a bit about yourself? How you got into sales within the HVAC industry, and prior to that, what were you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go way back. I started years ago. I went to college and ended up being a college dropout. I was in the physics program and I love science and all those kind of things. But man, the thought of being locked in a laboratory or, or a classroom teaching for the rest of my life was just like, it sounded awful. So I dropped out and really didn't know what I was going to do with my life. When I got married, I moved to a little town and became a helper on an install crew. I just attic rat, pulling duct work 19 years ago, did that for a couple years, did a little bit of service, actually quit the HVAC industry when I almost died in an attic one day. It was mid-afternoon. It was like 140 degrees in Fahrenheit for all of your Canadian listeners, in the attic. And, it was mid-afternoon, soaking wet with sweat. And I came across a live 220 wire that got me on the arm and it held on. And the guy next to me had to kick me off of it. And, it was really, really terrifying. And so that was a big turning point. I actually quit the installation crew. Went off, did some other things for a little bit, and the owner called me back and said, "Hey, man, I want you to come back to work for me, but this time I want you to do sales." My brother, who was he said his brother, who was the previous sales guy, was moving, and he needed to replace him. So, opened up the conversation. So I'll give it a try, and so I went out, and man, the first sale that I ever made, it was the very first appointment I ever ran. I sold it. And just 'cause at that point, I didn't know what I didn't know. And so I was just excited. And so they bought the excitement. And boy, this light bulb went off that was like, oh, this is what you're meant to do in life. And so from that point forward, man, I dove into personal growth and learning and striving to be 1% better daily than I was the day before. And it's been a wild ride, man. That's taken me through 2 different exits. And now I'm own and run Close It Now, the sales training and training systems for HVAC and for the trades. And 6 years ago, I started the Close It Now podcast, and it's just been an incredible honor and privilege to get to carry the weight of responsibility to help the entire industry and the trades to level up, to become better people.
crazy story, Sam. I didn't know about a lot of those stuff, to be honest, but they're crazy stuff. Now, I have actually, I've been, and I've actually seen a couple of your podcasts already. I guess you have more than 130, 140, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah,
I
fact,
was just
I
taking them. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, this is fun. Thanks. I'm glad you mentioned this is fun. This is a cool pivotal moment because this weekend I'm actually recording episode number 200. So it's a big milestone for us in the for the podcast.
Ah, I see. I actually underestimated the number. Not 140, 200. Got that. Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. Yep. Now, let me tell you the flow of that, right? And how we will go in this podcast. So we'll be kind of, yeah, sure.
No, you're good. I'm just going to turn the volume up a little bit, like, and I get it.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of objections, stuff like that. We'll be kind of doing, and we'll be kind of, going through that. Then some of the storytelling and stuff like that, which you already mentioned in your podcast, because I wanna kind of talk about that because I haven't seen a lot of people talking about storytelling in in our industry, right? So we'll be getting into those stuff. But before I actually jump into all those stuff, what's one stuff you think majority of companies are doing wrong when it comes to sales?
Ooh, that's a that's a loaded question. A lot of it is it's not that I wouldn't say it's not that they're doing wrong. I would say they just don't know what they don't know. It's the bigger This is the bigger problem. What I find is most companies as they're growing, there's a pretty predictable path for most people. Usually someone starts a company and they're a solopreneur, they're by themselves for a while. Then they bring in a helper or two, end up hiring a technician, and start to expand that way and move into then doing sales. A lot of times they're the one doing sales and service and install at the beginning. And as a company grows, what I'm finding is, they're writing their SOPs, they're writing their systems for the different divisions, and for whatever reason, the sales seems to be the very last piece that they end up putting together. And so if there's something that I would say companies are doing wrong necessarily, it would be just having things a little bit out of order. Because the reason I say that is the struggle that most of them come to me with is, "Okay, this is the last piece, we gotta fix our sales piece because we don't have a consistent sales system." So that's part of it. The other part of it is they don't have a whole lot of extra funds and money to be able to invest at this point because they've grown to the place that in business growth, there's, what we call the walls, right? Or some people call them sand traps. When we're investing in our business, the overhead goes up and up and up, and revenue goes down until you cross the wall to the next threshold, and all of a sudden revenue goes up again, and then the systems that you invested in will carry you until the next wall, until it's time to reinvest into the larger, more expensive systems. And so what happens is right about that time they start realizing that just their order taking from what they've done in the past, now they've invested into a few systems, so overhead's gone up a little bit, and unless they learn to sell better, now they're starting to lose money. And so by placing the learning sales and the sales process on the back end, it actually slows down the company growth. And so if they took that and put that piece in the front end and they learned how to sell, close more, higher close rate, higher average tickets, we help them set up a much better, fix their pricing, set up a lot better margin. Now, as that happens and as they grow, they end up with a lot more revenue to quickly be able to pass those walls. Because classic Brian Tracy's nothing happens, or Zig Ziglar, nothing happens until something gets sold. If you can sell it at the right margin from the beginning instead of
Mm.
having to go in and, undercut everybody. Oh, you go with me. I don't have as much overhead so we can charge cheaper and still make money. Well, that's a broken thought process. And so if you begin with the end in sight and say, okay, we want to be this big, knowing we're going to have a lot more overhead, then let's start selling like we're already there. And then when you act as if you're already at that place, you know, the the laws of attraction say you're going to move towards that. So it, it it allows us to hire better people to be able to reinvest in the company and buy better resources, and it just compresses time and speeds the process.
Makes perfect sense. One part of what you mentioned, right? Upselling. So, how do you exactly kind of upsell or create new sales opportunities from, let's say, routine service calls and maintenance visits?
hmm Yeah, I mean, it all has to do with questions.
Mm,
Uh, it's the process that I train and that Close It Now is all about is very, very much permission based. And, you know, little context for this, you know, the way that people buy in the last 4 or 5 years has completely changed.
mm,
Uh, the COVID and the pandemic was a huge, huge, huge springboard for a lot of our society has functions very much more with their feelings, with emotions. And we know that people buy on emotion, they justify with that logic, and then they justify the logic with another emotion. For way, way, way too many years, sales in our industry has only ever been logic. This is broken, you should fix it. You have a problem, let's fix it. You don't breathe good, let's fix it. But there's no emotion around that. There's no reason why life, we're not talking about how life is going to change or how life is going to be different. So as far as to answer your question directly, it comes down to questions. Is be able to ask people, hey, what's going on? Right? Literally just having the conversation, especially with service technicians of, hey, if I find anything else that is, we typically ask this question. If I see anything else related to health and safety, building durability, et cetera, is okay to bring it to your attention. But a step past that is, hey, before I get started, is it okay if I ask you a few questions about, you get to tell me what you're experiencing and what your concerns are living in your home? Because I'm not the one living here. You're the one living here. And once I have a better understanding of what you're experiencing, then I'll take a look and see what I find.
makes sense.
Because once we're able to ask those questions, then we can ask deeper questions. Oh, I heard earlier you mentioned you had this. Tell me more about that. And go down that road and then ask the question like, okay, well, if we could, for example, if it's allergies or something
Yeah.
okay, if we could lower the allergens in the house, here's the important part, the emotion part of it and the life change. If we could lower the allergens in the house so you didn't have to take as much allergy medication, so you didn't wake up with sinus infections as often, would that help you? And they'll say yes. Okay, great. Well, I don't know what we can do just yet. I'll take a look, put together some options for you, and see what might work, be the best fit for you. Sound good? Sounds great. And it's simple, but we try to overcomplicate it. It should be simple and easy.
Yeah, fantastic. Love that. Now, you talked about one thing, right? Buying pattern has changed since COVID. So, what changes do you see in our industry?
Yeah, the huge one. So there's a lot going on. This is a big, big topic. What happened in 2020 through about mid 2023 was the biggest boom that any home improvement industry had ever seen,
Mm,
really. And so we ended up with this huge spike it was just easy. Our industry exploded. And now that right about mid 2023, everything is people that just started in the industry, they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Everything's crashing. But for those of us that have been around a while, we're like, no, it just got back to normal.
mm,
This is normal. This is what it should be like all the time, right? And so the people without skills are suffering, but the ones with better sales skills are doing well. But the way people buy has changed, and they're very driven by feelings and emotions now. And the proof of that is all we have to do is look at the news. Before 2020, we never saw in the news, oh, so and so was emotionally triggered so that they did this in this, wherever they were, right? But we hear about it all the time now. And a lot of it is in our society, people have been given permission to actually have emotions and to express their feelings. Good or bad, it's not my judgment call to make, and it's not our judgment call as an industry to make. But what it is we have to realize that is our buyer. And so we have to communicate in a way that they understand, which means we have to talk about feelings and emotions. And if we're not comfortable with that, we're going to get left behind. There's somebody that is going to blow right past you with numbers because it's super, and it's not hard. It's just a matter of like, how does that affect you? And then asking, how does that make you feel? Right? How do you feel about the situation? How does that make you feel? And when we can uncover how somebody feels about the situation, then we ask the question, oh, if we could improve that, would that help? Once we get to that point in the conversation, we start hearing things like, literally, I've heard homeowners say things like, I would fight for that. I would make sure that we get that. We might have to leave other things out, but we have to make sure to keep this in because that's how emotionally connected they are to knowing that the second, and this gets rid of, the urgency conversation in the industry. Spring and fall, everybody's like, oh, how do we get urgency? How do we increase urgency? Well, in urgency, organically happens around, if I told you, yes, that, tomorrow your life is going to immediately change when we do this project, and you're not going to have to experience this, or this any longer. You don't care what time of the year it is.
True that. True that.
So that's real urgency, meaning being able to storytell this, you mentioned storytelling, able to paint word pictures forward in a way that they actually can visually and mentally see how life is gonna be different, and the clearer picture they get, the more attached to that desired outcome they are, and that's why people are taking action.
Mm, makes perfect sense. So when you, let's say, talking about storytelling, right? So when you actually go to any customer, you are trying to picturize things. You are trying to showcase him that, hey, this is what's gonna change after you do this, or after you, not buying this, because that wouldn't sound the correct way, but after you actually implement this stuff, or once we do this stuff for you, this is how your life is gonna change, right? This is how you kind of do the storytelling part, or is there any further thing to it?
Yeah, you've gotta build to it. It's not just this in every sales process, it's a process, it's for a reason, right? It's a journey. We're the tour guide on the client journey all the way through the process. And so the process, that storytelling doesn't start there. It actually starts way back towards the beginning a lot of people call it the needs assessment phase or the discovery phase, when we're sitting down, and really where people mess up is they spend way too little time on their questionnaire asking questions and way too much time taking actual measurements on the house. Now, what I'm not saying is don't measure the house and be accurate. What I am saying is the house doesn't write the check. People write the check. People will pay more for what they want than what they need. So if we're best stuck in the logic mindset of, well, this is broke, you should fix it. The homeowner's question is what? Why? What does it get to change for me? But nobody ever knew how to say that. All they've said is, well, this capacitor should be reading at these numbers, and it's not. It's reading at these numbers. They're like, but it's working. So what, right? Or whatever the thing is. So the storytelling comes in with, we have to spend way, way, way more time asking questions. And the philosophy of asking the questions is listen to understand, don't listen to respond. When we listen to understand, it helps us to pause, ask better follow-up questions. And then when we can do that, we are able to, really articulate that, put it together in a way that we're able to then paint forward. Once we've measured, we come back with the solution, say, okay, remember earlier we talked about this problem. And you said if we could help with that, that'd be really important to you, right? Right. Okay, great. Would you like to see what we found that's causing your problem? Because the problem is not the broken thing. The problem is what they're experiencing. And that's the other disconnect most people have. And so when we can say, for example, a room that's too hot or too cold, we're like, oh, the problem's the ductwork's disconnected. That's not the problem. that's causing the problem. Okay, so the problem is not the ductwork itself. The problem is not the thing we found that's broken. The problem is the perception of the homeowner, what they perceive to be going on. So in the case of the example we were talking about, the problem to the homeowner is the room's too cold in the winter, the room's too hot in the summer. It's not the fact that the ductwork is disconnected or whatever's going on. That's causing the problem. So we have to get our language right and correct when we're talking to the homeowner. Otherwise, they're thinking about one thing and we're talking about something else. And, you know, people that are depending on the person's mechanical aptitude, sometimes they can mentally bridge that gap and recognize that, okay, yeah, this makes perfect sense. But there's a huge part of our population that is just not mechanically minded, and that's okay. So we have to do a better job at communicating. Can you see how by this happening, it's causing the problem you're having? And just adding in that little bit of language in there will help them connect those dots and see that. But more importantly, so getting back to the storytelling part of it, it's so the foundation of this is in, what we kind of started talking about. People make buying decisions based on emotions. They justify it with logic, and then they justify that logic with another emotion. So what this looks like is you marry that with the what we know that there's two reasons people make decisions, two reasons people make change in their life, two reasons people, take action. One is they're moving away from pain. The other is they're moving towards pleasure, towards a desired action. The larger percentage move, it takes, people were more likely to take action to move away from pain, but we can't leave this other side out. If we leave the future out of the conversation, what happens, this is why, you know, client, salespeople that get, once they make the sale, maybe it's a great sale. Oh, it was awesome while we were in the house. But this is why buyer's remorse comes around. This is why all of a sudden, a few hours later, they're calling us and, hey, you know what? Let's put it on pause. We're going to get some other bids. So we're having to talk them off the ledge. This is why homeowners call back in a day or two. And you know what? We called around and we got some other bids. And this other guy said, we don't need all that. We're going to go with the cheaper guy. This is why this happens because there's nothing to pull them forward. They know that we did a good job of uncovering the problem. We made the sale, but now that they're crystal clear on the problem, it's easy for them to say, you know what? Let's find some more people. Let's shop it a little bit. The missing piece here, and this is what makes it so beautiful, is when we can clearly show them the problem. Logic is, yep, let's fix it. Here's the right solution. You're the right company. You're the right person. I understand the project. We negotiate a price. Everything's great. The piece that pulls them forward is now, and for example, we'll just take that same scenario, and I'll just put my daughter into the story. My daughter's 13-year-old. She is, her name is Erilyn, and she lives in this corner bedroom that's too hot in the summer and too cold in the winter, right? And so when we put her into the story, it sounds like this. Like, okay, so, earlier we talked about your daughter's bedroom being too hot in the summer, and you said you've checked on her and she's got two fans running and she's just sweating at night. And she's grumpy in the morning and has been struggling with her schoolwork a little bit. So, and of course we talked about that. It's like, okay, so can you see how by fixing this ductwork like we talked about, that's going to allow more air in there, it'll circulate better, and we'll even out those temperatures to match the rest of the house. Yes, yes, right? So we're there. And here's the future part. And won't it feel good to know that she's not going to have as many fans in there. She's going to sleep better. She's going to wake up way less groggy. And man, her life is going to she's going to see a big turnaround because now, because of sleep, her school, I'll challenge her, like watch her schoolwork, watch her extracurriculars, all these things. And, man, it's just gonna be great knowing that she's, like, sleeping better and taken care of, right? Right. And so we're pulling them forward into this future, like, painted this picture of, won't it feel great to know now this is gonna be taken care of, and she's not gonna have to suffer with that anymore. Can you see how that is? And so moving forward, they're like, "Yes." So get excited about the future outcome, then it's easier if they do get and this diminishes buyer's remorse like crazy because now what they're talking about is we left it on the positive. We leave there and they're talking amongst themselves like, "Man, this is gonna be great. We're getting your room fixed." And she's like excited about it, all these things. If they do get buyer's remorse and call other companies, now when they call us back, we can say, "I hear you. I understand. Would you like to hear why our homeowners love our projects, even though, yeah, there's other companies that are less, but they're not doing what we're doing, right? How much certainty do you have and confidence that they're going to be able to solve the problem to the degree that you have with us? Because we know we've done hundreds of these projects in the area. We know what it takes to solve this problem. Are you willing to roll the dice and take the chances? Because if they're cutting, to get the cheaper price, it's the size of the project. What other things are they cutting out that have to do with y'all's health and safety and quality of the project to get to the cheaper price? Are you willing to take that risk? And it turns into an easy conversation when you set it up ahead of time because now they're excited. They're like, "Yeah, woohoo!" And you're high fiving them. Oh man, it's going to be great feeling knowing you're taking care of your daughter this way.
Yeah, awesome. I see how you're connecting the dots here. Now, coming to the objection side of thing, few of stuff you already mentioned, but how do you typically handle, I want to think about it or stuff like that? Or, how do you overcome that objection?
The think about it.
Yeah.
So that's a fun one. I love to think about it. And really, I'll go back to the process. The process handles objections. So, first of all, of course, I get asked about objections and how we handle them a lot, and we'll take care of that here in a second. But really, it has to do with anyone who gets. I just want to throw this idea out there. Anyone who gets the same objection consistently, it's not the market, it's not the company, it's not your presentation, other than the fact that it's something you're saying along the way in your process that's causing them to think about it. Any objection that somebody gets over and over, it's their fault because they're planting the seed where that objection wouldn't keep coming up. So if somebody constantly gets, I want to think about it, and the other side of this coin is we attract who we are. The people I absolutely will stand by this. The people that get, I want to think about it the most, do that in their own life all the time. They're the people that when they're buying something, oh, we got to think about it. I have this conversation with people when they call me about coaching. We'll go over the coaching plan. Oh, everything looks great. It's awesome. I tell them the price, and they're like, I can see in this almost quote word for word every single time. Man, I can see how it's worth it. I can see how my numbers are going to change. Boy, I got to think about it. And I'll just ask them, do you get people telling you, I want to think about it a lot in your sales calls? Yeah, man. How'd you know? We get it all the time. I said, because you attract who you are. That's it. Simple solution. Become who you want to attract. So with that being said, and this really goes into a lot of what our close it now and my vision is work to become someone worth buying from. Everything starts internal first. So if we fix that in us, that objection is much starts to go away. Now, so that's the concept and the philosophy of it. Now to actually how we think about it is really simple. But it goes back to the process. When we start with the close it now process, we're starting with we're introducing the company, we're introducing the person, we're introducing, then we go through the project in that order. That way, when something comes up, like I want to think about it. In fact, just role play with me real quick. Give me here, I'll just ask you for the sale. Give me, I want to think about it, and then we'll handle it with you. So, yeah, man. So, sound looks like that, you know, does this project cover everything that we talked about earlier? Does this make sense for you and your family?
Yes, I see how it could help us, and I see how it would impact our life, but I need to talk about it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Oh, okay. So there's a couple different ways we could do about it. One, if you said that, if you're like, I need more time. I actually heard this just the other day. I said, okay, no problem.
Sorry?
That's it. I'm giving you more time.
Or time, a couple of days.
Hey, no, so we just laugh like that. But, and it's funny you mention that. Normally, people don't just immediately suggest an actual time frame, number of days. One of the things when people say, I want to think about it, is we falsely assume that it has a certain time frame attached to it. So this is a big failure that a lot of people do is that because let's see, it's right now during time of recording, we're at like 11 a.m. Central Time on a Friday. So if we were in an appointment right now at 11 a.m. on Friday and we've just wrapped up and you said, I want to think about it, what most people do is, okay, no problem. I get it. Tell you what, I'll email this to you. Um, when can we get back together? How's Monday work? And I'm like, man, you might as well have just thrown the appointment away because there's no set amount of time that people need to think about it.
Mm.
That's a completely undetermined amount of time. So there's a couple different ways to handle it, but the way that I like to approach it first is um, what we haven't talked about is somewhere in our intro, in our company intro, we talked about the amount of Google reviews we have and the star rating that we have. And we've talked about that a minute. And we also talked about how what I love so much about Google is you can't pay them to get rid of negative reviews. So that means we've earned every single one of those stars. We talked about that early on. So now an hour later, I presented you tell me this, we're going to handle it like this. So no problem until I get it. Yash, you got to think about it. We do the same thing. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, sure.
All right, perfect. So we're back in role play. Okay, great. So I just want to be clear with a couple things. I mean, you were good with the company doing the work, right? With our
Yeah.
company. Oh, okay, awesome. And me as the project manager, you're good with me making sure that you get everything that we talked about today. You're good with me overseeing the project, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. And the project makes sense. You can definitely see how the problems we talked about are going to go away. And then moving forward, you're not going to have to experience those. You and your family aren't going to have to experience those anymore, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, I mean, why don't we get on the calendar? Sorry. So why don't we get on the calendar?
Sorry, when you were asking me this, I'm feeling a bit nervous. I get you.
So right there, I mean, usually if there's still hesitation, it's more of like well, yes, it makes sense. It sounds good. We just got to think about it. But usually, so what this does, what that question is, so why don't we get on on the calendar? The way that that is worded, it cuts through a bunch of red tape and cuts right to the heart of what the real objection is. Because we know there's only 4 sales we have to make in a house. They have to when they call us, they're buying the company. They're trying to decide if we're the right company. They're not picking you. They're not picking in the level of equipment, any of that. They're calling companies. They're interviewing. So they're like, "Yep, company's good." Okay, so the next layer is the person. You're good with me as the project manager, make sure everything is good. Yep, yep, it's good. Well, the project makes sense. They have to be clear of what we found is actually causing the problem, and they have to be crystal clear and confident out of our confidence that our solution is going to solve the problem,
Mm.
and they see how life is going to change. When those 3 things are solved, the only thing left is price. So that's why we ask those questions in that order the way we did is once those 3 out of the way and you're good with that, I know and we're left with money. So then when we say, so why don't we get on the calendar? They're going to say, well, the price. Oh, it's the price. And now we've uncovered the real objection because there really is no such thing as think about it. That's just a stall feature. So now the next step is, and this is what I love about planting the Google credibility flag early on, or whatever review site somebody has a lot of good reviews on, is then so I'm going to ask you again, why don't we get on the calendar? And so give me a price objection, and then I'll show you how to use the Google catch-all to handle the objection there. So, yeah, I mean, why don't we get on the calendar?
The price seems a bit high, to be honest.
Price seems a bit high. Okay. Um, remember those Google reviews we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
So, just a question for you: do you think that we would have that many Google reviews? And I'll use a number from a coaching client that I just coached. Do you think we'd have 1,082 Google reviews at a 4.9 star rating from people in your area, in your own neighborhood, if we were out here taking advantage of people with price or price gouging, if it wasn't a fair price?
Nope. I totally get that. But I'm just, talking honestly, it seems a bit high to me. But yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm not saying you guys are doing something or you guys are taking advantage of anyone.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I'm glad you see that. And I totally get it. I mean, prices have gone crazy lately. And just went grocery shopping with my wife, and oh my gosh, the 2 years, 3 years ago, what would have filled up the whole car just in the carry basket now. Totally get it. I mean, when's the last time you bought a car? They're, 4 times what they were just a few years ago, right?
Yeah, true.
Yep. Totally agree with you, man. Um, but it's a big project with a lot of work to do it right. So, we've got one crew left tomorrow, or there's one on Monday that could knock it out for you. Which day works better?
Monday probably.
Okay, sounds good. Perfect. Well, I'll just need your license, and we can start here.
Gotcha.
Fantastic.
Love
There you go.
love it.
Right. So what just happened right there at the end, and this is really important for everybody listening. If you didn't hear the way that the price objection came up, it wasn't an actual objection. So most of the time when people give, "Oh, the price is higher than I expected," or "It just seems high," if we have the go take them down the road in the conversation where, yeah, you're right. You wouldn't have over 1,000 reviews from people in this neighborhood. It's such a high rating. I mean, obviously you'd have a fair price or you wouldn't have those. Yeah, glad you see that. Didn't they give a price commentary? There's a difference between an objection and a question, or or they're just making commentary. They're just noticing, making a statement. Because the first time anybody sees a price, it doesn't matter what the price is, there's going to be sticker shock.
Yeah.
It's always more than they thought, even if it's $500 or $50,000. It doesn't matter. It's going to be more than they initially think or want to
Mm.
pay. So a lot of times it just verbalizes like, "Oh, wow, that's a lot of money." It's just a comment. We are not required to answer comments. So if it comes up I treat them once is never, twice is always. If it comes up once, like, yeah, man, I get it. And that's why we're like, price of everything has gone up. So we've got tomorrow or Monday. What's better? And we just assume the sale and move on. If they give the whoa, 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 I just told you the price is high. Oh, is that a concern? So then we ask, oh, is that a concern? Then now we're into a conversation about price. Oh, well, what makes you think that? Compared to what? I love to ask, compared to what? And that'll tell us if they got other quotes or they did some Googling online and this is the number stuck in their head. We just don't know until we start to ask more questions.
Yeah. Let's say if I say that, Sam, compared to other bits that I've got, you guys are higher end. So how do you overcome that?
Mhm. Oh yeah, that's a huge part. So a couple things. Usually every good company has some sort of, price guarantee, right? Um, the one that I teach is looking forward instead of looking backward, meaning the way that we present our price match guarantee, it's not a price match guarantee. Anytime we call it a price match guarantee, that means go ahead and get your other bids and we'll see what we can do to race to the bottom and lower our price. That's not what we're talking about. What we want to have is our best price guarantee, and that's a different thing. So, yeah, sounds like, yeah, you got the quotes for if they already have the quotes, like, oh, perfect, no problem, let's compare. I'm happy to show you what they're not doing that's making the price less. Because at the end of the day, and so there's two different ways to go about it. One, what I love to do the best is help the homeowner see that the scope of work and the size of the project determines the price, and the quality they choose determines the price. Not just because what they think is just every company is the same and the price is some arbitrary number based on how much money that company wants to make. But we all know that's not true. How do we communicate it though? So the way to communicate that is pretty easy. Start with an analogy of something that they use every day. So it's like, okay, gosh, so man, I totally get it. There's other companies out there that, of course, that will do work for the different price. But let me ask you this: Have you ever, how you can take the exact same alternator for the exact same car and give it to three different mechanics and get three different results, right? You can take it to, say, I always use personal examples. Me and my wife, we drive a, Honda minivan with our kids. We can go to the Honda dealership and have the work done. We all know that's the highest level because it's going to probably be a little more expensive, but it's factory parts. They're designed to go in there. No shortcuts are made, and the warranty is second to none. So when I do that, I've got the peace of mind that's going to last. And if there's a problem, all I have to do is take it back and then it's fixed.
Uh,
Next to that, of course, is the local mechanic. They don't have a lot of times the same factory parts. A nice shop. They do good work, but they're less warranties, less guarantees. Sometimes a substituted part instead of the factory. Sometimes, and the warranty is not nearly as long. Or you could find the guy on the side that's going to fix it under the shade of the tree down on the corner. And the warranty is only as good until you drive out of the driveway and you hope that it keeps working next week.
mhm,
Now, with us, we're the factory specification design company. No one is taking the steps that we're taking. No one's going to be doing what we're doing. So at the end of the day, you're getting the peace of mind of a decade plus of not having to worry about this thing.
mhm.
That's what builds our price. So, and normally before this, we would ask something like, would you like to hear why more, all of the homeowners in the area choose us, even though we're higher than, those are the quotes you got. And of course, you're always going to get a yes. And that's when you start going through those, the bullet points.
Because
You go through that example.
just a question, you're right. So do you mention this, for instance, you said that whether you want to know why, homeowners choose us even though we are on a higher end. Do you say this when price objection is thrown at you, or you kind of have this communication initially as well?
Yeah, usually that's more of so that permission question is, and that one actually, that comes from Gene Slade. I'm not going to even take credit for that one specifically. He's a good friend of mine. We throw ideas back and forth, but that's the permission question's huge, right? That we're hanging on to. It's like a tool in your tool belt. We don't need to. We're not going to open the door initially and planting the seed that, hey, you could call a bunch of other companies that are going to be a lot cheaper. But you got us here because we're the best. That's not a conversation for the upfront. That's a conversation for when they bring it up. So some things we bring up, some things we don't need to bring up. We wait for them to. And so the way we wrap that conversation up is really simple. And we just help them see. So basically, what you're deciding here today is, this is not buying an appliance. We're not going down to Lowe's and Home Depot and just picking a refrigerator, and you're picking the LG or the Samsung or the Bosch or whichever one, and you bring it home and you plug it in, and it's just a price. If you if Home Depot's running a sale and you take their ad into Lowe's, they'll match the price, and then you're good, and then it works. The difference here is you're it's this per ideally, a lot of times the same equipment. However, it's getting delivered to your house. It's kind of like ordering a brand new truck, brand new Ford F-150. and it gets delivered to your house in 300 boxes on your front yard. And it's up to you to hire the right company to put it together to the factory specifications, factory design, knowing there's no leftover parts, that they're doing it exactly right, and you have the certainty and confidence that it's going to be put together correctly for your family's safety. And so you don't have maintenance problems for a lot of years. That's what you're choosing when you choose their company to do the project. So if someone is cutting corners to get a cheaper price, I'd be very concerned for your safety and for the length of systems. Because, at the end of the day, Yash, if, another company comes in and they're, say, $3,000-$4,000 less, but their system only lasts half as long, have they really saved you anything if you have to do it again?
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad you see that. So, yeah, so why don't we just get on the calendar? So then ask for the sell again, right? No, most people don't ask for the sell nearly often enough. They get really good at handling the objections, but it gets to the end of it and then they forget to ask again. Because then they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, well, we'll call you and let you know." Okay. No, ask again.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
People can smell sales BS from a mile away. The second we slide into using form, their BS meter goes sky high and they're like, sales guy, sales guy, sales guy. And they, just immediately shut down. So it sounds like, "Oh, looks like you play golf. I play golf. Oh, I love man, that's a great truck in the front. Man, where'd you get those rims? I like them. Oh, you like football? I like football. You have dogs? I have dogs. You wear clothes? I wear clothes. We're just the same." How fake does that sound? Everyone knows that's fabricated, just BS, right? The goal is we're not there. So I model the way that we do things. And what I'm not saying is don't have an authentic conversation while you're there about similar interests. Go for it. What I am saying is I model this from more like a doctor's perspective, right? When you go to the doctor, they're not coming in to tell you about the sandwich they had at lunch and the golf game they played that morning.
Yeah.
They're friendly, but they're not your friend. You're not going to lunch next week and you're not new BFFs. Right? But so many people act like, "Oh, you're my new friend and we're gonna hang out all the time and drink whiskey together." No, that's so fake and people can feel it. And most people hate doing it because it feels like contrived. So the way to build professional rapport, because there's a difference in relational rapport and professional rapport. You don't have to like me to buy from me. Of course, my vision and my philosophy is you're going to like me the second you meet me. That's an affirmation. One of my daily affirmations is everyone I meet wants to do business with me. That's daily affirmation. But we don't have to be best friends to do it. And so the difference is professional rapport is developed when a professional shows up. "Hey, I have a plan for our meeting today to be efficient and help you best. I'd love to go over that with you now, okay?" And we go straight into, "Here's the plan. Here's what it's going to look like." We get clear communication and we're telling them, "Listen, we care. I'm going to listen to what your concerns are and what you're experiencing. And then, and only then, and I'm going to make notes. I'm going to write it down, and only then am I going to go investigate." And here's a really cool place to cast doubt on the competition, because so many people will say, "Oh, well, the other guy just came in and went straight to the attic or went straight to the basement or whatever." And then we could be like, "Oh, well, were they a magician? Were they guessing at what's going on in your home? How do they even know?" It's like, that's why we ask you what you're experiencing, because I only want to focus on the things that are important to you. And we're truly here care. In fact, a huge move that I'm making in the process, and I know I'm all over the map with this answer, but all of this is important in the steps of the process. Having an ethics statement is a game changer. I just did a webinar a couple nights ago with a gentleman named Scott Sylvan Bell, and he's a longtime trainer in the industry. And we did this together. And to start at the beginning of your appointment with, is it okay if I read you the ethics statement for my company? And your ethics statement is committed, all these commitments to deliver top-notch quality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And when we tie the word ethics to it, everyone knows you're putting yourself on the hook to stand it and deliver this. And if you don't, we're asking them to let you know so we can make it up. And so when you actually be bold and like literally come straight forward and say, this is how we treat our clients with no exception. Then at the end, when somebody's like, oh, they're this much cheaper, or this, like, okay, yeah, I hear you. So let me ask you what is important. Is it important that you know you have a company that stands behind their word no matter what? And say it's $1,000 difference. You're going to be here. You said, across 10 years, we're literally talking about a couple dollars a week.
Mm.
Is it worth it to you for a couple dollars a week to go with a company that doesn't have an ethics statement that may or may not stand behind their word? Or why don't we just go ahead and get it taken care of with the peace of mind to know that it's done right the first time and you're not going to have to be fighting this over and over?
Mhm. Perfect.
Yeah. So that's how we do it.
I see that. Yeah, I see. So you're kind of breaking things down into much simpler stuff. You're breaking numbers down, and yeah, it seems so much better. When I'm asking you this, because it seems pretty big questions in our mind, but when you're actually answering it, it totally makes sense, to be honest. Yeah. One more thing that I want to ask. Right, you talked about competition. You talked about how we can kind of differentiate, or more I would say how we can perceive others to buy from us rather than any other competitor. But when you're in a city like Tucson, or any city over a million population, right, you have tons of companies. You have hundreds of companies, right? How exactly do you stand out, and how do you position yourself to have a competitive edge?
I love that question. One, it starts, like we were saying, starts with something like an ethics statement, something that really so many companies are hesitant to put that forward because they don't know if they can live up to it. So it involves going to work internally first and creating a culture of winning. It involves creating a company where people want to be at. And when they enjoy where they're at, that comes out to the outside. Sales is not the performance of an hour, it's the overflow of a life. A company worth buying from is a company worth buying from. So with all of that said, culture is first inside the company. When that is right, when that is fixed, then the way to make an impact, especially a lot the conversation right now is how do we go to market against these, enormous, maybe private equity owned companies that have endless amounts of marketing dollars and that kind of stuff. So it involves getting in the community. What I usually tell people is if the internet didn't exist, how would you promote your business? If the internet didn't exist, how would you promote your business? And so that is doing things the old school way. It's going to take some elbow grease and some legwork, but one, make sure your branding is on point, using guys like Dan Antonelli with Kick Charge or, any other good company. Branding has to be good, but more importantly, get in the community. Some ideas are, literally pick up the phone or get your butt out of your office and go in the community, walk in the office of all of the property managers and HOA offices around, right? Go talk to people. Let's build a relationship. How can we help each other? Talk to the HOA, people with HOAs and be like, do you have a preferred vendor for your HOA? I would love to host call it a Sunday afternoon ice cream social and set up a tent and a table and sponsor, buy a few $100s worth of ice cream and throw your sign up and just welcome everybody from the community. The HOA announces that you give away ice cream and a flyer. Here's our maintenance plan. We are in the community. Go to little league games and sponsor teams, sponsor kids sports leagues, become a member of the community. And when you're a member of the community, get involved in the Chamber of Commerce and all those things. When you consciously, intentionally give back to the community will give back to you. And so this can be done. I've proven it both on a company level and on an individual level. When I first moved to Austin, man, I didn't have a network. I didn't know a soul. And so I was like, I have to build a referral network really fast. So I joined 5 different networking groups And even it's been probably 5 or 6 years since I've been to any of them at this point, and I can't go anywhere in this town, in this entire city, all of the Austin metro, and go to any of those types of events that I know a handful of people already years later, because when you become someone worth doing business with, the more people that you meet want to do business with you. And so this is how we get referrals. This is how we make an impact in the community. And we're making that community impact. The community really will start to take care of itself. And the next door app, all of those kind of places, making an
Mhm.
impact. Door knocking. I am a massive advocate for door knocking. Nobody in this industry knocks doors, and it's at their detriment. The more we're willing to get uncomfortable, the gold is on the other side of that.
Mhm. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, perfectly makes sense. Now, shifting the talk to a bit of KPIs and stuff like that. Let's say it's metrics and KPIs. Do you mainly track? And how do you exactly make sure that this is the minimum that we want to achieve?
Mhm. So I am let's set this every conversation has a context, right?
Yeah.
The context for this conversation is missing your numbers and not hitting your KPIs is not a sin. Not knowing why you missed your numbers, that's the problem, right? So we're all about setting up KPIs and metrics to measure growth, because until you measure it, you can't manage it. But once we get once we get it set up and measured, then yes, we coach for progress. But we want to make sure that context is correct. Because even if we have a number, maybe somebody misses it 6 months in a row, I am okay with that as long as we know what's causing it, and we're working on it, and we're making progress. So that's the caveat. But the metrics that we typically track and follow, specifically in thinking about sales, average ticket is one. So close rate is one also. Those two, if somebody really wants to get granular, the average ticket and close rate, we separate those out. Also, have those a separate metric for marketed leads and a separate metric for internal leads. So turnovers and those types of things, for warm leads. So those should be measured
Mhm.
separately. So close rate, average ticket for both of those. And then just, obviously your total sales is one. But the metric that most people don't measure, that's one of the most important, it's a one at a glance, one number that equalizes all of it, is what I call the average dollar per lead. So let's take the entire total sales and divide it by total number of appointments. That's the number. That's the value. And this is the easiest way for companies to plan. That's the value that this sales rep say, it's my number. Every single time I knock on the door, sell it or not, this much revenue comes to the company, technically. So knowing that number with your people, one, it'll tell you who the most valuable players are on the team. This one guy might have a huge close rate, but man, he discounts everything. So the company is not making any money, right? Or this other guy might have a lower close rate, but this really high average ticket. He doesn't sell as many, but every single one he sells is at a really high margin. So the company makes more money that way. Well, their average dollar per lead might come out to show, who knows, right? It could be the same, it could be different. So that's the great equalizer. But then once a company knows, okay, well, I know that we're making $850 every single time we knock on a door. So if this is our total revenue goal, we just need to knock on this many, we divide it out and knock on this many doors. And so we just need to market to get this many lease. So then you start working backwards. And then as you continue to train your people and get better close rates and better average tickets along the way, it just speeds the process towards hitting those revenue goals. But we know our minimum number of appointments to get there.
Makes sense. And how would you come up with these KPIs and metrics? Let's say you have got a new business, right? So do you take the average market numbers in consideration, or how competitors are doing? How do you exactly come up with these KPIs?
No. So I'm all about so losers look at winners and winners look at the finish line. I don't care what anybody else is doing. You've got to develop your own internal numbers first. So, and it involves knowing the back end. It involves knowing your P&L. It involves knowing what your own company's overhead is. It involves your deciding what gross margin we're looking for. No one can tell you what that is other than the owner and principal members of the organization.
Mm,
Once you have all of that, then, and you build your pricing off of your own specific situation. The rest is details, right? I don't care what anyone else is doing in the market. That this number might come out more or less or the same. It doesn't matter. But the point is, it doesn't matter. The point is, it doesn't matter because we know the value we bring, and this is how we're going to bat.
mm, makes perfect sense. One thing I remember to talk about that the buy pattern has changed, right? So what impact do you think social media is having right now on the sales side of things?
Can you ask that a little? Unpack that a little bit for me.
God. So what impact does social media have on sales? So or more of closing, right? So we talked about Google reviews already, but do you think social media and presence on that is important at any given level?
I think I would answer that like this. Social media, a lack of social media doesn't necessarily take take away, but
Hmm.
the presence of good social media definitely adds. I think I would say it like that. Um, a company that has a good amount of social media with people don't go into social media to look for a company to buy from. People go onto social media to look for relationship. So if we can be a company who builds a relationship with people there by talking about non-business things. Now we're top of mind. We're talking about how we're in the community, how we're supporting the community, how we're doing this with the Girl Scouts, and we're doing this with the football team, and we're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing that.
Yeah.
It's always giving value, giving value, giving value. Then somebody needs something. Who do you think they're going to call? The company that's in their face giving value, the one that cares. The call a company was like call the company that cares, right? That's it. It's like you have to adopt this philosophy of 40, 50 years ago, the most trusted person in the town was the plumber and the air conditioning guy and the heater guy and, that kind of thing. "Hey, have my heater's out." "Okay, put on a pot of coffee. I'll be over in 30 minutes." Didn't shop around. Nobody needed to get quotes. They had their guy, right? The Too many people have adopted the profit covers all sins type of model and lie, cheat, and steal just to make a sale so they can grow their company huge and then sell it off and exit in a few years. That's not that's ruined the reputation of our industry. So I'm all about do the things it takes to bring trust back to the trades. When people know you, like you, and trust you, they're not gonna shop. They're gonna call you and do work with you because of the impact you're making on their lives. Now we're investing into their emotional bank account.
Mm, perfectly perfect. Makes perfect sense. I would 100% agree on this. Now, talking about the sales thing and the growth of a salesperson. What mindset shift do you think is necessary for a salesperson to kind of move from, let's say, an average performing guy to someone who's kind of a top performer in the team?
Mm. Adopting a mindset of lifelong student, always, always, always being coachable, and always be, um, you know, content where they're at and, functioning from a place of gratitude, right? Being grateful for where we are, but never satisfied with where we are, right? So in this place of this mindset of to constantly focus on personal growth, I teach what's called the wheel of success or the wheel of life. Um, 6 elements in this. One element is your actual sales skills. The other 5 elements If we're only focusing on sales skills, we get left behind. That will never make a top performer. The other 5 elements have to be in alignment. One is personal growth. We have to do it daily. What are we listening to? What podcasts, what audiobook, what TED Talks, what is it? The other elements are your nutrition and your fitness. You can't be a $1 million earner eating off the dollar menu. We're a machine. We have to function like a freaking race car, right? You don't put cheap fuel in a race car. It doesn't function. When it's, we've been in the field for 14 hours and we've got another call to run and it's, 8 o'clock at night and we've got an hour drive before we even get there, right? Do we have enough fuel in the tank to be able to make it through and be there at our best self? Or if we start shortcutting nutrition and fitness, we're not going to have the fuel to be able to do that. The other couple elements are your relationships. What are your relationships like? We say we're family first, but have we ever cracked open a parenting book, right? We have 800 business books and sales books on our bookshelf, but don't have a parenting book. Well, you're not family first, or your calendar and your bookshelf would show it, right? So how do we fix our communication skills at home? And the other one is spiritual practice. And this is not you have to be a certain religion thing. It just talks about every person at their core knows what they need to do to be in alignment with their own belief system. Are you doing those things or are you shortcutting it? Are you reading the things you should be reading? Are you spending, meditation or prayer or quiet time, whatever your thing is, are you doing that or not? So when you get all of those other elements sorted and actually start making progress there, that creates someone. This is when I mean someone worth buying from. And it proves all the time. You take somebody out of an industry and drop them in another industry they know nothing about. And if they're a top performer, they're going to be a top performer real fast. While they're learning the thing in the industry, but they walk in the room and just people want to do business with them. They don't even know what it is, but you're worth doing business with. And so that's really the biggest part of it.
Love it, Sam. I loved it. Lastly, what follow-up strategies would you recommend after the initial consultation has been done? How do you actually kind of follow up with those prospects?
Sure. Well, of course, the name of the company of my company is Close It Now. So the goal is, of course, to be able to close it on the spot. We know we're not going to close every single one of them. Follow up is important. The biggest follow up principle is just freaking do it. The average person buys after 7 to 8 follow ups. You know what the average number of follow ups that people in our industry do? 1. So what we're doing is we're educating the homeowner and taking them from zero knowledge of it, and we're educating them, we get them to the place of, oh, I need to think about it, and then we leave and never call back. And then somebody else comes in, and they're already educated. This is why we get a lot of one-sit closes, because they've seen someone else, and they've had another couple other bids, and they've been educated. Now we come in and we take them the rest of the way. If we don't follow up, we're allowing other companies to take them the rest of the way, and we're literally giving business away. So doing it is the first part. We just have to do it. So the simple trick to not have to ever play the follow-up game, is called BAMFAM. Book a meeting from a meeting. Don't ever leave an interaction with a homeowner, be it in person, on the phone, virtual like this, without. If it doesn't close right then, okay, great. So listen, I can't be spontaneously available. I want to make your time is important. I want to make sure to be available for you. So, go ahead and grab your calendar right now. I'll grab mine and let's sync up the next time we could talk and schedule it. Get them locked in on the calendar and the day, the time, and how you're going to connect. If it's a text, if it's a phone call, whatever. And as long as that is on your calendar, the sale's not over. It's to be continued. It's just part 2. And as long as they'll continue to do that, that can go on forever. I literally have a story that I tell. I had a client, we did that for every month. We talked the first couple of weeks, we talked pretty often, but then we talked every month for 8 months. I'm not ready yet. Not ready yet. Not ready yet. Okay. Okay. And it was fine. But I did it. And when they finally texted me one day and was like, okay, we're ready. Let's go. I go over there. We refresh the numbers, $52,000 project. Here's a check. And what they said was, we were not going to use you. We like the other company better and the other person better, but you're the only one that continued to reach out. So it's clear you wanted to earn our business.
Mm.
Okay. All I did was just stay in touch. So people get lazy and don't stay in touch, or they don't know that they should. And they're literally leaving millions of dollars on the table because they just never reach back out. Challenge I always give people is, especially January, February, pick up the phone while you're slow right now, call every single client that you saw last year that didn't close, and just say, hey, how's it going? Don't know if you remember me, this is so and so with this company. There's a guy up in the Northeast. He's going to be on my show soon. He closed 200 in 1 week, first week of January. He does this every year. He called every single unopened or open appointment from 2024, closed $200,000 without leaving his house.
Crazy.
Just call it Oprah people. It's sitting there waiting for everyone to do it, but just nobody's doing it.
Perfect. My man, that's brilliant, sir. Loved every bit of it. Loved every bit of it. Is there anything you would like to say to our audience, or any resource you want to share?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple things. There's two big giveaways I have right now, or two things that are tools. One is if somebody doesn't have like a really solid questionnaire for the discovery phase, in my Close It Now, I have a Facebook group, so everybody's listening. Just search Close It Now. You can join the Facebook. I definitely want to make sure you're in there as well. And in the files section, download the questionnaire. Use it. There's even a non-logoed version. Take it and make it yours. So that's a gift that I have. Then also, I recently recorded a guided meditation for top performers to help mentally break through that glass ceiling to see yourself as the expert. So if somebody wants to get a copy of that, it's 17 minutes and it reprograms the brain into success. And so they can join the Facebook group, or they can email me, sam@closeitnow.net, and I'll send that to them. That's another gift that I have. And yeah, that's the main thing. So those are free. What I would really say is, you sales isn't, there's no magic bullet. There's no shortcut. It's work. To be a professional in any industry, you have to put the work in. And when you become hungry and you do the things it takes to be that person. I mean, a year ago, I trained a guy named Austin. He just put up 1.1 million in January and at his company up in New York, right? In January alone, he put up 1.1 million. And it happens all over the country when somebody decides to take action and do the things they know they should be doing. And so that's my message, is just get busy. If somebody feels stuck, there's not a single thing that can't be solved by getting into momentum. And that's what my coaching company does. We help people get into momentum to make those kind of strides.
Mm, makes perfect sense. I'll add the link to your Facebook group and the website in the description too. So anyone
Yeah.
who's interested, feel free to check that out. And it was fantastic talking to you, Sam.
Oh, one last thing. Can I talk about one more thing here real quick before we go? For everybody that wants, I am hosting Closing Out Relentless, the Ultimate Sales Transformation. It's going to be April 29th, 30th, and May 1st in Boston, Massachusetts. The website, the link to get tickets for that it's closeitnowbootcamp.com. So closeitnowbootcamp.com. There are 6 tickets left that are buy one, get one. The first 10 tickets were buy one, get one. So right now, until they're gone, the people can grab half price tickets, and it is going to be transformational. People are calling us the Tony Robbins of the trades. And so we are leaning into that because, like we talked about today, sales is not and we say it again, it's not the performance of an hour. It's not learning a script and role playing and getting good at a script. Sales is the overflow of once you become someone who expects to close. You expect to be able to help people on a higher level. You become that person worth buying from. And that's what the transformational event is going to be about is yes, we're going to teach the close it now sales system. We're going to teach the psychology and all that. And we're going to help you become the person along the way because your beliefs create your identity and your identity creates your outcomes. And so you don't get what you want, you get who you become.
Perfect. And I believe you're the Tony Robbins of the trades. 100%.
Man, it's truly seeing people's lives change. That's what it's all about. It's cool when their sales numbers go up. It's even cooler when they say things like, my relationship with my wife is better than it's ever been because of the communication I've learned. Relationship with my kids is better. Those types of things. That's what makes the difference.
Uh, yeah, amazing, man. Gotcha. That was all for today's one, guys. I hope you like this. If you have got any other question, feel free to comment below. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye. Have a great, great, great day.
Thanks, man.